My ex-wife took everything in the divorce, then tried to take my business too, until the prenup surfaced. I remember sitting in my lawyer's office, staring at documents that represented the collapse of everything I once believed. Vanessa sat across the table, composed and confident, as though she already knew exactly how this would end. I built my company from nothing, working 18-hour days while she slowly grew distant, cold, and increasingly resentful. That morning felt surreal, watching someone I once loved fight to take away everything I had sacrificed for. I met Vanessa 12 years earlier at a mutual friend's wedding, instantly drawn to her confidence and effortless charm. We dated for 2 years before marrying in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and proud, hopeful family. Back then, I worked as an assistant manager at a hardware store, dreaming about starting my own contracting business someday. Vanessa supported that dream initially, encouraging me during long nights spent drafting business plans at our kitchen table. I started Whitmore Contracting 3 years into our marriage, using savings, loans, and countless sleepless nights, building momentum. The first 2 years were brutal, filled with financial uncertainty, exhausting hours, and constant fear of complete failure. Vanessa worked part-time as a receptionist, though she often complained about my long hours away from home. I promised her repeatedly that success would eventually provide the comfortable life we both desperately wanted together. By year 5, Whitmore Contracting finally became profitable, securing larger commercial projects across 3 surrounding counties. I remember celebrating our first 6-figure contract, believing our hardest years were finally behind us completely. Vanessa seemed happier during that period, enjoying nicer vacations, a bigger house, and increased financial stability overall. I never suspected anything was wrong, focused entirely on scaling my business while trusting our marriage remained solid. Looking back now, I realize success brought comfort, but comfort slowly created distance neither of us noticed immediately. I worked constantly, missing dinners, weekends, and important moments I convinced myself were temporary sacrifices worth making. Vanessa began spending more time with new friends, joining a country club I rarely had time to visit. I dismissed her growing distance as simple lifestyle changes, never suspecting deeper problems developing beneath our comfortable surface. By year 8, my company employed 30 people, becoming one of the most respected contractors in our region. I finally felt secure enough to slow down slightly, hoping to reconnect with Vanessa and rebuild our fading closeness. That's when I discovered she had been having an affair with a man from her country club circle. I found messages accidentally on her tablet, confirming months of secret meetings I never once suspected occurring. I confronted her immediately, watching her expression shift from shock to defensive anger within just a few seconds. She admitted everything, blaming my absence, my exhaustion, and my obsession with building something bigger than our marriage. I felt betrayed, heartbroken, and furious simultaneously, realizing years of sacrifice had quietly unraveled behind my back completely. We attempted counseling briefly, though it became clear reconciliation felt impossible given how deeply trust had shattered. Vanessa eventually admitted she wanted a divorce, insisting our marriage had ended long before I discovered her affair. I agreed, exhausted and heartbroken, believing separation might finally bring clarity after months of painful, confusing tension. I hired a lawyer, Gregory Hastings, recommended by a business associate familiar with complicated commercial divorce proceedings. Gregory reviewed our marriage documents, immediately asking whether we had signed a prenuptial agreement before marrying originally. I told him honestly that Vanessa had refused signing anything, insisting prenups implied distrust early in our relationship. Gregory sighed, explaining that without protection, my business could potentially become vulnerable during property division proceedings. I assured him Whitmore Contracting was entirely my creation, believing courts would clearly recognize its separate, independent value. He warned me that state law often considered businesses built during marriage as shared marital assets legally. That warning settled uncomfortably in my chest, realizing everything I built might now be legally vulnerable completely. Divorce proceedings began, and Vanessa's lawyer immediately requested detailed financial records regarding Whitmore Contracting's assets and valuation. I felt violated, watching outsiders scrutinize every financial decision I had made building my company from nothing. Vanessa's demands grew increasingly aggressive, requesting nearly half ownership despite never contributing directly to daily business operations. I argued she never worked within the company, never invested capital, and never contributed meaningfully toward its growth. Her lawyer countered that her emotional support and household management indirectly enabled my business success throughout our marriage. I felt sick hearing that argument, realizing courts often validated such claims regardless of direct financial contribution. Gregory warned me this case could drag on for months, draining resources I desperately needed for business operations. I agreed to mediation, hoping we could resolve property division faster without prolonged, expensive courtroom battles. During mediation, Vanessa demanded the house, savings, retirement accounts, and a significant percentage of my company's overall value. I felt my chest tighten watching years of sacrifice reduced to negotiation points across a sterile conference table. Eventually, exhausted and desperate to move forward, I agreed to give her the house, savings, and retirement accounts. I believed conceding those assets would finally protect my business from further scrutiny and prolonged legal battles. Vanessa accepted those terms initially, though something about her expression suggested she was not entirely finished pursuing more. 3 months after finalizing the divorce, I received a certified letter from her new lawyer requesting additional documentation. My stomach dropped reading that letter, realizing she intended pursuing further claims against my company despite our agreement. I called Gregory immediately, panicked, asking how she could reopen negotiations after our divorce had already been finalized. He explained she was filing a separate civil claim, arguing my company's true value had been intentionally underrepresented. I felt fury building, realizing she was accusing me of dishonesty despite years of transparent financial documentation provided. Gregory reviewed her new filing, discovering she hired a forensic accountant claiming my company was worth significantly more. I met with Gregory again, determined to fight this aggressive attempt at reclaiming assets already legally settled. He suggested reviewing every historical document related to our marriage, searching for anything overlooked during initial proceedings. I spent nights digging through old files, boxes, and storage units filled with years of accumulated paperwork. I found old bank statements, business plans, and personal letters, though nothing seemed immediately relevant or particularly useful. Then, buried inside an old filing cabinet, I discovered something I had completely forgotten existed after all these years. It was a folder labeled Premarital Agreement, dated 3 weeks before our original wedding ceremony took place. My hands trembled opening that folder, uncertain whether this discovery would help or complicate everything further. Inside were signed documents, notarized properly, outlining specific protections regarding future business ventures and premarital assets. I stared at Vanessa's signature, confused, remembering clearly she had refused signing any prenuptial agreement years earlier. I called Gregory immediately, explaining what I found, my voice trembling with confusion and cautious, disbelieving hope. He asked me to bring the documents immediately, wanting to verify their authenticity before proceeding any further. Gregory examined the documents carefully, confirming the notarization appeared legitimate, dated accurately, and properly witnessed throughout. He explained that if authentic, this document would completely protect my business from Vanessa's aggressive additional claims. I asked how this document existed if Vanessa had refused signing anything, and Gregory suggested contacting our original attorney. I tracked down our original wedding attorney, David Chen, now retired but still maintaining detailed archived client records. David remembered our case clearly, confirming Vanessa had actually signed the agreement after initially expressing hesitation months earlier. He explained she eventually agreed after learning it would only protect future business assets, not personal or shared property. I asked why I never remembered signing or receiving copies, and David explained I had also signed hastily before our wedding. He said both of us seemed eager finalizing wedding preparations, likely forgetting specific details amid overwhelming pre-wedding stress. I felt stunned, realizing this crucial document had been protecting my business the entire time without either of us remembering. David provided certified copies, along with sworn documentation confirming the agreement's authenticity and proper legal execution originally. I brought everything back to Gregory, who immediately began preparing our response to Vanessa's aggressive civil claim. He explained this document would likely end her case entirely, protecting my company from further legal vulnerability completely. I felt a strange mixture of relief and lingering anger, realizing years of stress could have been avoided entirely. Gregory scheduled a formal meeting with Vanessa's legal team, planning to present the prenuptial agreement directly and decisively. I spent the days before that meeting reviewing every detail, ensuring nothing could be questioned or challenged effectively. I also gathered additional documentation proving Whitmore Contracting's consistent, transparent financial history throughout our entire marriage. The morning of the meeting arrived, and I dressed carefully, choosing composed confidence over lingering anxious uncertainty. Walking into that conference room felt different this time, carrying evidence that finally protected everything I had built. Vanessa sat across the table, confident as always, clearly unaware of what Gregory was about to present formally. Her lawyer began outlining their claims, insisting my company's true value had been deliberately hidden during original proceedings. I remained composed, watching Gregory calmly organize documents while Vanessa's confident expression remained completely, obliviously unchanged. When given the opportunity, Gregory presented the prenuptial agreement, sliding certified copies across the table deliberately. Vanessa's expression shifted instantly, confusion transforming rapidly into visible, unmistakable panic as she recognized the document immediately. Her lawyer examined the documents carefully, visibly uncomfortable realizing this discovery fundamentally undermined their entire aggressive legal strategy. Vanessa insisted the document was fake, her voice rising with desperate uncertainty rather than confident, composed denial. Gregory calmly presented sworn documentation from our original attorney, confirming authenticity beyond reasonable legal doubt entirely. I watched Vanessa's composure completely crumble, years of confident manipulation finally meeting undeniable, well-documented legal reality. She turned toward me, demanding answers, though her anger felt hollow given the clear evidence presented directly. I told her calmly that I had genuinely forgotten this document existed, until recently discovering it accidentally myself. Her lawyer requested a brief recess, clearly needing time reconsidering their entire aggressive legal approach immediately. During that recess, Gregory quietly told me this discovery essentially guaranteed complete dismissal of her additional claims entirely. I felt overwhelming relief, realizing years of stress, uncertainty, and fear were finally reaching a definitive, favorable conclusion. When the meeting resumed, Vanessa's lawyer reluctantly acknowledged the prenuptial agreement's validity and legal enforceability completely. They withdrew their civil claim entirely, recognizing continued litigation would likely result in embarrassing, costly legal failure. Vanessa remained silent, visibly humiliated, realizing her aggressive attempt at reclaiming assets had spectacularly, publicly backfired. I felt no satisfaction watching her humiliation, only quiet relief that fairness had finally prevailed after months of stress. Walking out of that building, Gregory shook my hand, congratulating me on protecting years of dedicated, hard-earned work. I thanked him sincerely, though exhaustion outweighed celebration after months of emotional and financial uncertainty combined. That evening, I sat alone in my office, staring at Whitmore Contracting's logo, finally feeling genuinely secure again. I called my business partner, Marcus, explaining everything, watching relief spread across his face as I finished speaking. He reminded me that our employees depended on this company's stability, making this outcome important beyond personal, individual relief. I realized protecting Whitmore Contracting protected 30 families depending on steady employment and consistent, reliable income. Over the following weeks, I focused entirely on rebuilding stability, both professionally and personally, after months of exhausting uncertainty. I started dating again cautiously, though trust felt harder rebuilding after everything Vanessa's betrayal had ultimately revealed. I met Sarah, a structural engineer working with local architecture firms, someone refreshingly honest and completely uninterested in my company's valuation. We started slowly, building genuine friendship before allowing anything resembling romantic connection to develop naturally between us. I appreciated her directness, her independence, and her complete lack of interest regarding my financial success specifically. Meanwhile, Vanessa's reputation within our social circles suffered significantly once details of her failed legal attempt became known publicly. I never spread information intentionally, though small towns naturally circulate stories regarding dramatic, publicly documented legal proceedings eventually. I focused instead on expanding Whitmore Contracting, securing new contracts, and rebuilding momentum after months of stressful distraction. 6 months later, the company reported its most profitable quarter yet, finally overcoming lingering uncertainty from legal proceedings. I promoted several long-term employees, ensuring stability and growth opportunities for people who remain loyal throughout difficult months. I began mentoring younger contractors, sharing lessons learned about business protection, legal preparation, and genuine partnership importance. I often thought about that forgotten prenuptial agreement, grateful my younger self had unknowingly protected my future security. That document represented more than legal protection. It represented foresight neither of us fully appreciated during our optimistic wedding preparations. I realized true security came not from avoiding vulnerability entirely, but from thorough preparation and honest, transparent documentation. Marcus and I expanded operations into 2 additional counties, growing Whitmore Contracting into a genuinely regional respected company. I started volunteering with a local business mentorship program, helping young entrepreneurs understand legal protection importance early. I shared my story openly during mentorship sessions, hoping others might avoid similar vulnerability through proper legal preparation. Sarah and I grew closer over the following year, building something genuine, honest, and refreshingly uncomplicated compared to previous relationships. I introduced her to my company, my employees, and eventually to friends who genuinely appreciated her authentic, grounded personality. I proposed 18 months after our first date, this time understanding the importance of thorough, honest premarital preparation. Sarah agreed enthusiastically, and together we discussed prenuptial agreements openly, without hesitation, defensiveness, or uncomfortable, avoided conversation. We consulted lawyers together, ensuring complete transparency regarding assets, expectations, and mutual protection moving forward into marriage. That conversation felt entirely different from years earlier, built on genuine partnership rather than avoided, uncomfortable financial discussions. I realized healthy relationships required honest conversations about money, protection, and mutual respect regarding individual contributions and achievements. We married quietly the following spring, surrounded by close friends, family, and genuine happiness completely different from before. I felt grateful reflecting on how much I had learned since that painful, exhausting divorce years earlier completely. Whitmore Contracting continued thriving, now recognized as one of the most respected commercial contractors throughout our entire state. I maintained careful, transparent business practices, ensuring thorough documentation protected both my company and future personal relationships equally. Occasionally, I heard updates about Vanessa, learning she had moved away, starting fresh somewhere completely disconnected from our shared history. I felt no lingering anger, only quiet acceptance that everything ultimately unfolded exactly as fairness and honesty required. I thought often about Gregory's early warning regarding business vulnerability. Grateful fate had ultimately protected what diligence originally intended. Marcus and I eventually opened a third location, employing over 80 people across 3 thriving regional business operations. I mentored several young business owners through their own prenuptial agreements, emphasizing protection as respect rather than distrust entirely. Sarah and I built a genuinely happy marriage, founded on transparency, mutual respect, and honest, uncomplicated communication throughout. We welcomed our first child 2 years into marriage, and I finally understood family happiness built on genuine trust. I often reflected on how differently things might have unfolded had that prenuptial agreement never resurfaced during crisis. That discovery taught me preparation, however forgotten temporarily, ultimately protects everything meaningful built through years of dedicated effort. I closed that painful chapter grateful for growth, protection, and the courage required rebuilding trust after devastating betrayal. Standing in my expanded office one evening, watching employees leave for the day, I finally felt completely secure. This story was never about revenge. It was about protecting integrity, honoring hard work, and allowing genuine justice room prevailing. My business survived because of forgotten foresight, but my life healed because I finally chose honest, transparent partnership. I learned that true security comes through preparation, honesty, and surrounding yourself with people genuinely invested in mutual respect. Marcus often says our company's greatest achievement was not surviving legal challenges, but building lasting integrity throughout every decision. I still remember signing that forgotten document years earlier, grateful my younger self protected a future I couldn't yet imagine. Today, Whitmore Contracting stands as proof that honest, dedicated work eventually overcomes even the most aggressive, unfair challenges. I forgave Vanessa eventually, not because she deserved automatic forgiveness, but because carrying resentment prevented genuine future happiness. Our company culture now emphasizes transparency, protection, and mutual respect, values I learned through painful, transformative personal experience. I look at my growing family, understanding genuine partnership matters more than any financial success achieved individually. Sometimes the most powerful justice is not punishment, but watching integrity and honest preparation ultimately prevail against unfair manipulation. Vanessa once believed she could reclaim what she never helped build, but fairness eventually revealed the complete documented truth. I closed that difficult chapter not with anger, but with hard-earned peace, gratitude, and genuine, lasting hope. And whenever I review our company's protective legal documents today, I remember they represent respect, not distrust or fear. I taught Marcus's daughter, now working within our company, that thorough preparation protects dreams built through genuine dedication. Sarah often reminds me that our happiest achievement remains building trust through complete honesty, rather than avoided difficult conversations. I visit David Chen occasionally, thanking him again for archiving documents that ultimately protected years of dedicated, hard-earned work. He always smiles, reminding me that thorough preparation, even forgotten temporarily, eventually reveals its true protective value completely. I never expected forgiveness toward Vanessa to feel this way, less like forgetting and more like choosing genuine peace. Whitmore Contracting success today reflects lessons learned through betrayal, transformed into wisdom, guiding every future business decision made. I often mentor engaged couples, encouraging honest conversations about protection, ensuring nobody faces similar vulnerability I once experienced completely. Sarah and I built our marriage differently, choosing transparency over avoidance, protection over hesitant, uncomfortable financial discussions entirely. I realized our family's greatest security came not from wealth alone, but from honest partnership and mutual, documented respect. Standing beside Sarah during our daughter's first birthday, I finally understood happiness built on genuine trust rather than uncertainty. I thought about my younger self, signing that forgotten document, wishing I could tell him preparation would someday save everything. That version of me eventually became someone capable of building lasting security through both business acumen and personal integrity. Marcus often says our company's story proves preparation protects dreams even when circumstances seem completely unpredictable and overwhelming. I remind young entrepreneurs that love and business both require honest documentation protecting everyone's genuine interests and contributions. Vanessa's attempt to reclaim what she never helped build ultimately revealed the importance of thorough, transparent legal preparation. I realized our family's healing began the moment forgotten documentation revealed truth stronger than aggressive, manipulative legal maneuvering. My business remains secure now, protected through preparation neither Vanessa nor I initially believed would prove so crucial. I often reflect on how differently things might have unfolded had that prenuptial agreement remained lost forever completely. That discovery, though initially forgotten, ultimately protected everything meaningful built through years of dedicated, exhausting entrepreneurial effort. I forgave myself for forgetting that document, understanding stress and excitement often overshadow important details during major life transitions. This journey taught me genuine partnership requires honesty most couples avoid discussing until circumstances force uncomfortable, necessary conversations. I closed this chapter grateful for growth, protection, and the courage required building genuine trust after devastating betrayal. And whenever I think about that overlooked filing cabinet today, I remember it ultimately protected everything I dedicated my life building.